Hey, today I'm talking about McCordsville and 3 of the reasons why I like McCordsville. Now, you might not agree with these reasons, of course, but you might agree with all of them or some of them. But these are just 3 reasons that I think a person might like McCordsville as an option, especially if geographically the northeast side of Indianapolis is going to be a fit for you. So we'll get into that in this video. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with Living in Indianapolis. Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time to the channel, welcome. Here we just talk about everything around Indianapolis and all of the towns and cities that surround it. So if you have questions about any of the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis itself, then don't hesitate to reach out any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move anywhere in the Indy Metro. All right, again, we're talking about McCordsville today, and I think we should get into the map just to show you where McCordsville is first, and then get into 3 of these reasons why I like McCordsville, or why I think it's probably a good option for you. So again, at the geographic location, if that works for you, way over here on the northeast side, you can see it outlined in red on Google Maps here. Right on the border of Indianapolis, which is roughly right in here, even though the map doesn't show it very, very well. And then right on the border of southern, really southeastern Fishers, right through this area. And then in this vicinity, you're gonna have the border between McCordsville and Fortville. And then as you go further to the south, somewhere in this area here, although it can be a little bit confusing by address, you're going to have the border of McCordsville, and as you're going south, you'll cross into Greenfield. And strangely, it looks like Greenfield's way over here, but actually Greenfield extends way over here, goes right up against Indianapolis, and then even all the way up here into the northwest. Now, there isn't as much in this particular location, but there is still stuff. So you have some commercial, you have a lot of neighborhoods, you've got a lot of options through there a lot of times. But McCordsville up here is what we're focusing on today. And reason number 1, I think McCordsville would be a pretty good place to be, is that if you live in McCordsville, at least right now, you are still going to be in the mix. So you're not very far out there, because McCordsville, just where it's located, at least most of McCordsville, it's very close to Indianapolis. So as you can see, what you talked about right here, you've got Indianapolis just to the west, and you've got Fishers to the north, and it is really not that far. So if you were to live anywhere, let's say in this particular location, or right here in this neighborhood, this is Villages of Brookside. For the most part, there are a few others in here too, but Villages Brookside by Fisher Homes, that's a huge neighborhood, and it's closed out at this point, but a lot of newer homes through there. You got the Hancock Wellness Center. This place is super nice. Gym, and you got physician practices in there. They have a pool. It's a nice place, definitely. But if you're anywhere in that vicinity, you just go straight up 600, which is actually Oleo Road. Whenever you get into Fishers, you cross 96th Street. And there's a lot right along Oleo Road as you're going north. This right here, Fox Garden Family Kitchen, we just ate there with our family last weekend. That's a good place. There's another Fox Garden, the original one in downtown Fortville. It's a cooler building, definitely, but the food is exactly the same. But you go straight up Oleo, and then you are into the heart, really, of East Fishers. There's a huge Kroger right here and all kinds of shops. And then up here would be all of the schools, or at least a lot of the schools that you have in Fishers. Not that that's going to concern you if you live in McCordsville, but all of that is up there. So you are in a great spot here, living in McCordsville, but still close to anything over here on the east side of Indianapolis and anything on the south side of Fishers. So just pointing this out, right, you have Geist Reservoir right there on the northwest side of McCordsville. You've got the marina right here. If you go a little further north, this is where Geist Waterfront Park is. And then this is the boat launch. This is the boat ramp where you can put boats into Geist. The public can. Over here is Geist Park. You can actually put kayaks right in here in this part of Geist and paddle down to the reservoir, which is pretty cool to do. I've done that before. Super fun. If you're into that kind of thing, you've got Flat Fork Creek Park right out here, which is a Fishers park, but you're really close there in McCordsville. In fact, McCordsville, some of the addresses sneak over into here, so you're exceptionally close to Flat Fork. Good location for sure, but then also you've got everything going on here in downtown McCordsville. Now, when I say downtown McCordsville, I don't mean the downtown like you'd see in Carmel or Indianapolis or even Fishers for that matter. There's not much to it. Now, there are things here in downtown McCordsville. You've got Kinsey's, Trax Barbecue. You've got all kinds of little tiny restaurants like that. And then you've got some other standard type restaurants and places. Culver's is actually being built right here. It's not there yet, at least at the recording of this video. It will be. A little hibachi sushi place. This B&V license branch. This is a great one to go to. It's really never that crowded. This Coffee at the Crossing, super cool little coffee shop that's just popped in. But the big deal here in McCordsville will be in this particular area right here. This is where McCord Square is going to go. So they're going to have an amphitheater there, plenty of businesses through there as well, and a lot of other stuff that will be included in there. And so this is a plan for McCordsville to kind of eliminate that feeling that it's just an extension of Fishers and an extension of Indianapolis, kind of a residential extension of those things. So McCordsville's really grown a lot. There were roughly 1,000, a little more than 1,000 people in the year 2000. And so we're talking almost 25 years later. And now there's pushing 11,000 people. So 11,000 people, that's still not a lot of people, of course. But when you start to break down how fast that's grown really over the past 25 years, that's some pretty quick growth. And what's really pushed that is Indianapolis right over here, pushing into the east, into McCordsville, and then absolutely without a doubt, a lot of that pressure has come from Fishers. And this part of Fishers has grown tremendously. It's pushed its way south and then across 96th Street and into McCordsville. So the need for neighborhoods, the need for homes has really been there, and McCordsville has been an option, but it's not wanted to be just that. So people that live in McCordsville, they've wanted to give McCordsville a little bit more of a cultural feel, a cultural heart. It's not going to be this giant metropolis. That's absolutely not going to happen, at least anytime in the near future. It's not going to be as Fishers. It's not going to be as big as Carmel is. Those are both over 100,000 people now. It's a long way off from that, but it's going to have something. It's going to have a little bit more personality. It's going to be a little bit more, well, it's going to be getting a little bit more away from that suburban sprawl and just neighborhoods after neighborhood after neighborhood. So that is the plan for it. But I do like just being in the mix, being close to all of that, and the opportunity to be close to all of that as well. So that is number one. Number two is that, of course, it's in the mix, and if this is developing in here, in that particular area, then you're gonna have a lot of new construction. So you're gonna have, I'd say, more opportunities here to build. If you're looking at something, you wanna get in there pretty new, then you're gonna have in a lot of places, and a lot of places aren't gonna be as in the mix as McCordsville is. So when we take a look just at some of these neighborhoods, I've got on our MLS here, you can see 96th Street right here, which is essentially the border. You get a little bit of mixing up whenever you're looking at a map of any kind. Sometimes the GPS doesn't work as well, and the location doesn't work as well, or as well as it should. But some of these homes are new-ish. So this one was built in 2015. And then this one here, built 2017. So that's not incredibly old. And if you're looking at something that is in the 1960s, 1950s, that's more your speed, you're not going to find a whole lot of opportunity in McCordsville because, as I said before, there was just over 1,000 people in the year 2000. So 25 years ago. there's just not a lot to choose from that's much older than that. So most of it's going to be less than 20 years old. But then when you get into some of these other neighborhoods, there's some brand new ones like this one here in Vintners Park. This absolutely is one of my favorite neighborhoods in McCordsville. I just love its location. I mean, it's right here along 86th Street. It's kind of tucked away back in here. This is Daniel's Vineyard right here behind it. Now, it doesn't say that on there, but Daniel's Vineyard right here on the Google map, at least, you can see this there. And that's kind of fun that there's a vineyard back here, and they run events. They have live music. They, of course, have wine, but they serve a little bit of food there, but not a tremendous amount. It's a neat place to go, and you can walk right back over to it from this particular neighborhood. These are Dries built homes. I'm a big fan of that builder. Really like Dries homes. They have some nice floor plans, nice looking homes, and it's not a huge neighborhood. So I do like that part as well. There won't be a lot of traffic going back and through here, but just a really good example of a neighborhood that is in the mix, even though when you're back here, it doesn't really feel like you are, but you can pop right out here onto 600, get up into Fishers very easily. You could get to this downtown area of McCordsville really soon. Whenever it's a little bit more developed, you can get there now too, of course, but pretty easy to come up here over to Geist. Let's say you wanted to go to the marina, like Wolfie's on Geist, just hang out up here. There's awesome ice cream shop in here too, Puccini's Pizza. That's all right in there. It's actually an Italian restaurant, so they have more than pizza, but all super close, and it just doesn't feel like you are. And then as you get further south, you get into some other new-ish homes. So here's another one at Villages of Brookside, one of the neighborhoods I just mentioned, 2018. So just a lot of opportunity in here to get into something that's really quite nice and newer. And that's almost all you've really got all through McCordsville. So I like it that it's new construction. It's not way out there because, boy, when you get out here in this particular location, not that the mileage is way out there, but boy, you can really start to feel rural. So if you're anywhere along 600 and you're looking back to the west, well, that's going to be looking right back into Indianapolis, and it's going to, of course, look really populated and crowded. But if you look out to the east, I mean, it is just kind of a hard cutoff, and it just goes out into farms and fields and individual properties and very, very rural. So eventually, McCordsville will spread out that way. Fortville will push down to the south as well, and that'll become more populated. It's still a ways off, but over here in this particular area of McCordsville, where all of this new construction really has taken place, you're just kind of in the heart of all of it. So I really like that particular part. In addition to that, so in addition to just some of these new construction homes, you can see the prices here are really more affordable than what you're going to find in some of the other suburbs out there. So especially Carmel's going to be expensive. Zionsville is going to be expensive. Westfield's going to be pretty expensive. Fishers will be pretty expensive too, at least on average. You can find some more expensive homes through here, definitely, like $729,000, $739,000. But then you've got a lot of other homes in here that are definitely well below $500,000. You've even got some homes in here that are less than $400,000, and some newer homes at that. So getting into some of these, as we push down to the south, here is one right at 400, even though that's not a single family home, but it's still under that 400 mark. Down in here as well. Now these aren't brand new. This is Woodhaven, and these are still relatively new, 2016, so not that old, but under 400,000. Really a nice neighborhood through here. So definitely more affordable with a lot of that new construction or newer construction as well. All right, the third thing that I like about McCordsville is that it's a good mix between rural and suburban. So it's, as I said before, you got to go fairly east, way out here to get very rural, but you're close to it. But it's also not that suburban sprawl that you've got maybe in some other places around the country. You've got a little bit of it, I think, around Indianapolis too, but it's just not that bad because the geographic area that McCordsville covers, it just isn't really all that big. So I like that. And the mix between that suburban, rural, and the bigger city. So if you go up into Fishers, you've got the bigger city. It's definitely going to be more crowded. You've got just to the west, you've got Indianapolis, even though this particular section of Indianapolis is extremely residential. You've got a little bit of commercial in through here, but not a tremendous amount. Very residential, very mature, a lot of trees all through this. This is a beautiful area. This area south of Geist, this part of the Geist district. But this McCordsville is going to be a mix of that city and rural, and so it's going to have a slightly smaller feel as well. And it comes with the smaller items as well. So for example, let's say schools. So when you get into McCordsville, you're going to be in Mount Vernon School District. So if we look over here in McCordsville, pretty close to, there's a neighborhood. Oh, I just passed it right on by. Yeah, here we go. Hampton Walk, which is going to be right here across the street from McCordsville Elementary School. You've got that. And then when you're looking for the high school, Mount Vernon High School is way over here to the east. When you get to the high school for Mount Vernon, it does feel very rural. It feels like you're out there a good ways. Now, the good thing about this, or the bad thing, it depends on what you're actually looking for, but I've heard this from people that I've known. I've heard this from clients way in the past where they've moved to Fishers and they had a great experience at Fishers. There was nothing wrong. They thought it was fantastic. But Fishers, each of the high schools there, once their kids finally got to the high schools, they're much larger. So now they're larger than when those clients had kids going through it, but they're both right around the 3,400 kid mark. That's both high schools in Fishers. There's Hamilton Southeastern, and there's also Fishers High School. Both close in population, very close to 3,400. So that's close to 6,800 kids in high school in Fishers alone. Now, when you're looking over here at McCordsville and McCordsville High School, given that it's still, just lost myself on the map, given that it's still out there a little bit, it's right here, a little bit south of Fortville, there's roughly 1,500 kids or so. So I've heard them say, well, it was great, but it was so big, it was so competitive, from clubs, sports, anything that you had to try out for. It seemed to be really difficult to get into, but over in Mount Vernon, maybe it would be less so. So they thought, well, maybe we could have gone there to a slightly smaller school, maybe in McCordsville. We're still close to Fishers, still close to Indianapolis. Actually, it almost feels like you do live, if you're on the north side of McCordsville, that you do live in Fishers. It feels like that. That's what they've actually thought in the past. And I've heard people say that in McCordsville. I think, well, we live in McCordsville, but it feels like we live in Fishers because we're so close to it. But our kids go to Mount Vernon schools. Mount Vernon schools are still highly ranked, just much, much smaller. So it's one of those things that is that mix between the big and the small. So it's not completely super tiny either, like a very small rural school that might be out in the middle of essentially nowhere. But you're still close to everything that you need, but not so close that you're also getting the population to go along with it. So it's one thing to certainly think about if you have kids in school, where you want to end up as far as your schools are concerned by the time they get to high school, because if size is something that's important to you, then it's something to think about. All right, there you go. There are 3 reasons I like McCordsville, and there are other reasons why I like McCordsville. So we could get into that over a chat if it's something that you're interested in, McCordsville that is, as an option, as long as geographically it works out for you. So if you have questions about McCordsville or Fishers or Indianapolis or any of the cities and towns, then reach out any way that you know how, and we'll catch you in the next one.